Welcome to Project Play. I'm Kaye England with Wilmington Prints, and we are excited to share another wonderful project with you. Our goal is to help you benefit from choosing your grades, your gradations, your colors, your values. And if you've always struggled with light, medium, and darks, how to use that camera maybe to make a it with that quilt, we're gonna give you some great tips. All right, let's work on our gradations. Well, I am really excited to share all of this information with you, and let's take a look at the recipe for this, because what's so fun about this now is we're working with the 10-inch squares, and then we're doing a lot of cutting of those squares, and we're also going to be working with a strip back of the dry brush white. With the name of the quilt being Made the Grade, it sort of sounds like, gosh, am I going to get an A or a B or a C? But the grade in this case is really going to refer to the different values that live within this pack. What I've got on the table is the simplicity of what this quilt needs cut. We've got our teal here, and I just chose one 10-inch square to give you a little bit of a break of how this works. So the 10-inch square, you are asked to cut it into a set rectangle, a set square, and a smaller square. Then your dry brush white will be nothing but rectangles. So you'll cut two size rectangles, and here you cut two squares and another rectangle. And my friends, that's all the cutting there is to this project. Where the work is going to come in, and where I think it's a great lesson for even advanced sewers, is how well do I do when I have to choose values. And values and gradations and all of that stuff, I mean, there's 100 words for it. But for me, what I'm looking for is when I put these things together, can I tell a light, a medium, a dark, and maybe a really, really dark? So when you open the pack, that's going to be your first job, is breaking those down. On the table, I've just kind of selected 3 or 4 of the values, because once you open this pack of your real teal, what the very first thing that your pattern is going to ask you to do is it's going to label these A1, A2, A3, and A4. A1 is pale, 2 is light, 3 is medium, and 4 is dark. And that's going to be the reference you'll refer to all the way through this project. So it is really so beautifully written for you, but your job is going to be what's pale, what's light, what's medium, and what's dark. So let's just take a look at what's laying on the table. All of these could fall into a different category. If I were just trying to reference what these 4 are, that one is certainly darker than this one. This one's a little bit iffy because that's got more white in it than that does. And this guy is really more of a true solid. I am telling you that I do not believe you can make a mistake on this. I think you're going to be critical on yourself, but if you isolate these and you put them down next to each other and you think, yep, I believe that's the light, and yep, I believe that's my pale, because you have to make selections of these 10-inch squares. So your pattern is going to ask you to select 8 pale 10-inch squares. It's going to ask you to do 10 light, 9 medium, and 6 dark. Then all of those remaining ones will be used to cut for your binding. So when you pitch this stack down there, you're going to go, oh my goodness, Kaye, I don't know what's pale and what's light and what's medium and what's... You have to start separating them. Now here's a little lesson if you've never done this before, and I don't know how many, I bet everybody watching this owns a phone. It's either an Android, an iPhone, or something. But there is a setting on there, if you were to take a photograph, where you can reduce you can shoot it in black and white, but you also can shoot it in color and then go in and find this. And I bet everybody out there knows where that is. And it'll help you get this down into grayscale. If you remove the color, it is very clear what is lighter than its neighbor. If you just look at the color, it's very difficult to choose sometimes. And I don't know how many of you have ever made a quilt when you finished and you went, well, dang it, that didn't look like I thought. They look just exactly alike. That's because their values were very similar. And when you put them next to each other, they're not necessarily red and green. They're just the exact same value. Christmas red and Christmas green, for the most part, are very, very close in value. And unless you separate them with something, they will fade into each other and you'll lose a square or a triangle point. So that's not going to happen on this quilt because you're working primarily with rectangles and squares. So you're not going to have the same issue, but you are going to have a different look perhaps than the picture does. Now let's look at the quilt for a second. One of the things I want you to be aware of, that when you're building this little 9-patch in an essence, it has 2 colors on one side and then this side, see how this kind of follows as a little trail that runs down through it? They don't have to match, but that's where your value is working. So pay attention to when you're assembling them that you keep, because this guy is just three rectangles is all that guy is. And right here now, what I want is these 2 to be the same and these 2 to be the same. This does not have to be that, but it's the dark value running in here. And then this kind of is like a little framework for it. This is where you just have to trust your judgment when you build this. Where the great lesson in this project is learning how to choose that when it's close in contrast. And these are close in contrast, but just get in there, choose your squares properly in the quantity that it asks you for, because you don't have much weight factor here. So don't just go willy-nilly cutting. Make sure that you pull it exactly like your pattern has asked you to do, and you'll be ready to go. And I cannot emphasize how important it is on the cutting in this project, because you do not have room for errors, really, because what you're starting with is a 10-inch square. So once we cut that, and then from our white, we're cutting set rectangles. Now we're ready to assemble our block. I've not laid this out necessarily with the color that I would sew it, because remember, I've sewn all of this, so I'm working with some of my leftovers. Because you'll notice that there's one color on the left side and another color on the opposite side. Those are mated to a color that's in the large rectangle that sits next to it. So that's where your pattern is calling an A1, an A2, an A3, and an A4. So get your head around what those are when you lay it out. I actually choose my blocks exactly like you're looking, and I'm putting a rectangle here, a rectangle there. I'm going to sew my squares there, there, and then I'm going to sew row 1 to row 2, and then to row 3, and if I were building a row, then these would end up going together. So what's so much fun about this is this is it. You're making a batch of these and a batch of these, and then you're laying them out. That's it. I mean, honestly, your value lesson is where the work is in this. Now the quilt does end up with, because you have plenty of your dry brush white, so it does end up with a full border of the 2.5 inch around it, and then the leftovers that you have from your 10 inch, you can piece your binding. Mine's not bound because, you know, we work under a pretty tight schedule, and I'm lucky to get it quilted and on the wall and we get the video done. But what I want you to be very careful about when you're working on this, that you don't get so caught up and you can't tell when it's pale and it's this, that you forget the quilt's probably going to be happy regardless of how you do this. Once I get it, all of my elements assembled, then I build my rows from top to bottom or left to right in your values, depending on how you prefer to work. Now, don't forget, this is a free pattern for you. So all you have to do, if this is a little confusing, go download your pattern, then come back, watch it again, then you can make notes on your pattern. So Wilmington does make the pattern available to you. Your quilt shop, of course, is your go-to for your 10-inch packs and all of the things that you're going to need to build the project. So once you get all of these little elements made, once you get it on the wall and you get it sewn, my friends, you have made the grade. We thank you for joining us, and we hope you love this project as much as I do, and I might even have to make that second color. So let's see what kind of grade you get. See you later. Bye-bye.